So every time there is a tier 0 format, we always anticipate a scenario where we might get an emergency ban list. Basically, an emergency ban list is kind of like a set of changes that kind of come out of nowhere, despite the fact that we had good evidence to believe that we wouldn't get a ban list for a while. Some people also ask for tier 0 decks to get nerfed before they even exist, so before we even get the cards that make them tier 0, which actually does make sense. Because of the fact that we got to study the OCG very closely, we already knew that Ishizu Tearlaments was going to dominate the TCG as well, and because of that, this format is kind of already established. That left a lot of players frustrated by the lack of innovation and diversity, which I definitely can understand and empathize with. With that being said, today we will try to find the best ways of nerfing Tearlaments. Granted, it is the best deck of the format, but before this video starts, friendly reminder to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate you, and now let's get right into it. First things first, I actually believe that Tearlaments Half Venus should actually get limited or banned, and here's why. So the reason why Tearlaments is a tier 0 deck isn't because it makes like 10 negate turbo on turn 1, but rather because it plays so much on the opponent's turn, and that is kind of frustrating for people when they go first, and then they kind of see like a Tearlaments Half Venus milling a bunch of names, or like Keldo or Mudora, whatever, any card that actually generates advantage in the graveyard, because sometimes they actually might summon more monsters on your own turn than you do. Like, imagine being able to resolve Nibiru on your own turn on turn 1. That is actually really stupid. And it is actually thanks to Tearlaments Halfness that the meme of our turn now exists. By hitting Halfness, we can actually mitigate the degeneracy that the deck can actually do on the opponent's turn, which I think is very reasonable. The next card I want banned would be Primeval Planet Perlarino, and for some pretty obvious reasons. Field spells have gone really powerful in the past years, and I remember back in the days where we had like shitty field spells like Mountain, Yami, or like Wasteland that literally did nothing. Now it's like on a whole other level. Like that ass field spells used to affect both players and did nothing. Now they're one-sided and get you super far ahead. Like the Tearlaments field spell not only searches any Tearlaments monster on activation, on top of that it grants them all 500 attack, as well as all of your fusion monsters 500 attack, and as if that wasn't enough, whenever a Tearlaments monster is returned back to your deck or extra deck, you get to destroy any card on the field. Bruh. The card literally has so many effects, I actually lose brain cells every time I read it. So because of that, I want to say that this is already a very good reason to limit the card. It just does too much, and it's not like you're going to kill the deck by limiting it, but it's still going to be making the deck pop off a little less often. Now for these Shizu monsters, I don't believe that any of them really has to get banned yet. Maybe wait like another format before starting banning a bunch of cards. But if one of them has to take the axe, it definitely has to be Keldo. Keldo is objectively speaking the best out of all the Ishizu monsters. The reason for that is because not only it shuffles back cards from the graveyard into the deck as a quick effect, which make it like way better than like a hand shot, because you know, like you mill the card and then you get to interrupt your opponent and make them like not draw cards with a Ruining Fountain, for example, or you can dodge like Call by the Grave and other stuff. Like the card is super flexible, but on top of that, when you summon it with its own summoning condition, you get to search your deck for any Ishizu card. Mudora also has an effect to get you a search for Gravekeeper's Trap, but nobody plays the card, and that's the reason why Mudora is way less good than Keldo. And because of the fact that Agido and Kelbeck can actually help out the opponent in the mirror match, a lot of people are no longer playing Agido, which definitely makes sense, and there is no reason for us to like ask for Agido to get banned if pretty much nobody's playing it anymore. I want to say the cleanest way to hit Tearlaments would probably be to limit a bunch of cards instead of just banning 1 or 2 cards and then calling it a day, because that might actually be either inefficient or make the deck complete garbage. And if you kill Tearlaments way too much, then Splight becomes out of control, so we're just going to be replacing a problem with another. Alrighty, so now let's move on into the more and less obvious cards to ban. The first one is super obvious, it's Instant Fusion. I shouldn't even have to explain it. It summons Kit Kalos without relying on any Tearlaments graveyard effect, and then it doesn't even use up your normal summon. It just does way too much, and it's time for the card to get banned once and for all. I'd also like to say that Terraforming is a card that is finally ban-worthy, because field spells are just no longer what they used to be before. I'll reset that. Back then, they used to do nothing pretty much, so it made sense that we had 3 Terraforming, but now every field spell almost is like a Rhoda and also does another thing on top. So by banning Terraforming, you're gonna hurt Tearlaments a bit, but you're also going to be inflicting collateral damage onto the other decks, which I think might be less of a problem, especially if we can stop people from searching Mystic Bind. Last but definitely not least, another ban-worthy card that has been seeing a lot of play in Tearlaments, especially in that deck, and a little bit in other decks like Draco Slayer, for example, would be Abyss Dweller. I've already made a video on this card, but people were way too focused on strawmanning my arguments and not even listening to anything that I had to say, so I will repeat it once again. Abyss Dweller is not a card that promotes interaction at all between both players. As a matter of fact, it does the exact opposite. It tells your opponent, no, don't even try. And you know, Abyss Dweller is either that kind of card that dwells in the bottom of your binder waiting for its time to shine, or it drowns your opponent or yourself into total abyss.
Wow, Yaxai, that was such a good one.
Yeah, I know, I tried. Basically, when the card is good, it's a little too good, and it's always somewhat abused in like tier 0 decks or tier 1 broken decks. So you really can't say that it is a necessary evil for rogue decks to utilize, because you're full of shit, you're still gonna lose to Tearlaments even if you have Dweller, if you're playing, let's say, fucking Toon or something. And lingering cards in general, like Different Dimension Ground, Artifact Sanctum into Scythe, or D-Barrier, just aren't really the best ways to fix the game. It's kind of like curing cancer with AIDS. It's no bueno. Like, I don't really want that. Now I'm saying, like, it's just like, I'm not really down. But yeah, as I said, Dweller makes mirror matches way less skillful and way more dice roll oriented, because the player going second now has drastically less options, which makes the game very unenjoyable for the competitive players on top of obviously the casual players. So everyone is a loser at the end of the day. Hooray! Anyway, some people also asked for Kid Kalos to get banned or limited, which I don't really agree with. Kid Kalos limited wouldn't really change much because a lot of people are only playing one anyways, and Kid Kalos ban would literally kill the deck, which is also very unfair. It's kind of like banning Robina or banning, you know, like Splight Blue or something. But yeah, I don't know if I've missed anything, but please let me know your thoughts about this format and how we could actually fix it in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.